Who is copying whom? Yeah, I think I got that grammatically correct. I'm not 100% sure, but about 85% sure.
It's whoever, not whomever.
That's whomever.
No, whomever is never actually right.
Actually, whomever is the formal version of the word.
And weren't these reports supposed to be independent? Which reports, you ask? The Kingdom Accountability Project, the Elder Accountability Team for the investigation into Dr. Michael Brown, and the Pastoral Recommendation Team for IHOP Kansas City Investigation. They seem to copy each other quite a bit. My question today is, why do they copy each other when they were supposed to be independent investigations? That's right, folks. Today, I've got the Kingdom Accountability Project right here. I've got the Elder Accountability Project team thingamajig from Dr. Michael Brown investigation. And I've got the Pastoral Recommendation Project IHOP Kansas City investigation team. And there's a lot of similarities, folks. I'm just telling you, like, a lot. And I wonder even if the other more recent documents, the NAR Statement on Christian Nationalism, is also similar to the Prophetic Standards Statement that also more recently came out within the last several years, 2021 and 2022. We're going to get into all that today and more on this episode of Firm Foundation. Stick around, folks. You're going to want to see this. Let's get into it.
How firm a foundation, ye saints of the Lord, is laid for your faith in this excellent word. What more can he say than to you he has said, to you who for refuge to Jesus has fled?
Welcome to this episode of Firm Foundation Podcast. My name is Richard Moore. In this podcast, I talk about everything that's moving me in relation to church and theology, hopefully to help build with you a firm foundation in Jesus Christ. Hey, before we go any further, if you wouldn't mind doing me a huge favor and clicking the like button, hitting the subscribe, and smashing the bell, it helps YouTube get this content out to more people. Right from the outset, folks, I'm going to call on Mike Winger at the Bible Thinker. I'm going to call on Laura Lynn Taylor. I'm going to call on Brother John Elving. I'm going to call on Blaze and Christine over there at Wake Up and Win podcast. I'm going to call on Torn Curtin and the Minor Prophets, all to look into these documents. This is obvious cover-up culture, folks, and I will show you in detail how these documents are, for the most part, virtually identical. They get to other conclusions and they do other things, but they copy each other at length. So, Mike Winger, please, you have a large platform. Look into this, brother. I will send you all this material. Torn Curtin, you also have a very large platform. Blaze and Christine, please look into these things. You guys, I've mentioned you all here. Please look into these documents. I will send you what I have when we're done with today. So these documents, I asked the question, who is copying whom? I think that's correct. I think that's the usage of that word, that funny scene from The Office debates the proper usage of whom.
Actually, whomever is the formal version of the word.
But alas, we have here, folks, today, the Kingdom Accountability Project document. I have printed it off. I have looked at it. I have tried to do due diligence in trying to see what first of all, let me just say, back up. Let me back way up. I was looking into something completely else. This is what happens to me lately. I was looking into something completely else, and it was Romans 11:29. Romans 11:29 says the gifts and call of God are irrevocable. And so I was looking into that, and basically the whole charismatic movement teaches, and I'm doing a show on that. teaches that the gifts and call of God are irrevocable. They mean it to mean that the spiritual gifts are irrevocable. Spiritual gifts of Christians are irrevocable. The gifts of prophecy, the supernatural gifts, they're all irrevocable. Whether or not you fall into sin and all this other stuff, they mean it to mean that you can still act as and operate in the prophetic, or operate in the apostolic, or operate in the miraculous sign gifts and still be a Christian. They're irrevocable. You can fall into deep sexual sin and your gifts are irrevocable. That is not what that passage of scripture is talking about. It is talking about Israel. It's very, very clear. The gifts of call of God are irrevocable. Look it up. Just read the context. And I'm going to do a show on that much later. And basically, I was looking into this and just trying to find people who say that the gifts of call of God are irrevocable, meaning spiritual gifts are irrevocable. That if you're a prophet, you're always a prophet. If you're an apostle, you're always an apostle. You never can sin too far, and you know, that type of thing. I was actually talking with Jake over at the Framework, and he said, wait a minute, the gifts and call of God are irrevocable. Didn't they have a section on that in the Kingdom Accountability Project? And I'm like, yeah, you might be right. And so I went over there and searched, boom. And then he's like, wait a minute, they said it also in the Pastoral Recommendation Team thing. And they also said it in the and I'm like, wait, what? And folks, here's what happened. That whole section, we're going to look at it today, where they talk about Romans 11:29 is an exact copy. 3 paragraphs are copied directly from the Kingdom Accountability Project, this document here, to this document here, the Mike Bickle IHOP Investigation, the Pastoral Recommendation Team, the PRT. We're going to kind of do that. Exact copy. And then into the Elder Accountability Team dismissal of the allegations against Dr. Michael Brown. There are 3 paragraphs that are almost exactly copied. We're going to look into it today. So without further ado, let me jump over here to my desktop. I have come to the conclusion that there is no question that these documents are produced by the same author team. I do not know, and I cannot say who it is, except that I know the commonalities of who signed these documents and who is claiming credit and or claiming to have been on part of all these 3 documents. So I will name those people, but I cannot say beyond a shadow of a doubt because I'm not a forensic analyst. All right. I would turn these over to someone who's in forensics, but this is not a forensic analysis. It is just an observation, folks. And I have done a deep dive into what these documents do. Jake over there at the Framework, I'm going to give him major credit because he helped me see these things. And then he also did a long Facebook post. We're going to cover that today as well. But before we do anything, we jump into scripture. And Luke 8, verse 16, starting at verse 16, describes this. No one, after lighting a lamp, covers it with a jar, puts it under a bed, but puts it on a stand so that those who enter may see the light. For nothing is hidden that will not be made manifest, nor is anything secret that will not be known and come to light. Take care then how you hear, for to the one who has, more will be given, and to the one who has not, even what he thinks that he has will be taken away. All right, so that is showing basically nothing's hidden that will not be made manifest. If there's a hidden agenda here, if the people who have signed these documents have basically used the same template and are copied and pasted, claiming that it's independent, that will be made manifest, whether in this life or in the life to come. Here we go. Then we also have Luke 12:1 through 3, where Christ describes how we ought to beware of the Pharisees. So Jesus says, or it starts off 12:1, in the meantime, when so many thousands of the people had gathered that they were trampling on one another, he began to say to his disciples, beware of the leaven of the Pharisees, which is hypocrisy. And I'm going to tell you folks, the people who have signed this are obviously hypocrites. It's no question. They are not being forthright that this is not borrowing from the other. They're claiming that these are independent documents and independent investigations and independent, not belonging to each other. The thing about Michael Brown, the Pastoral Recommendation Team, has nothing to do with the Elder Accountability Team of Michael Brown. That is just not true. And I will show you beyond a reasonable doubt that these documents all borrow from one another. All right, so here we go. So Jesus is saying the Pharisees, their leaven, their poison is hypocrisy. Nothing is covered up that will not be revealed, or hidden that will not be known. Therefore, whatever you have said in the dark shall be heard in the light, and what you have whispered in private rooms shall be proclaimed on the housetops. All right, let's also look at Ephesians 5 and try to discern what is pleasing to the Lord. Ethical standards, accountability, truthfulness, these things are all pleasing to the Lord. Honesty, not being deceiving, not saying one thing but doing another, those are all pleasing to the Lord. Take no part in the unfruitful works of darkness, but instead expose them. For it is shameful even to speak of the things that they do in secret. But when anything is exposed by the light, it becomes visible. For anything that becomes visible is light. Therefore it says, awake, O sleeper, and arise from the dead, and Christ will shine on you. If we expose the fruitless deeds of darkness and make them visible to the light, then Christ can shine on you. And here's the awake, O sleeper, and arise from the dead, and Christ will shine on you. This is the gospel. If we are exposing evil deeds of darkness and doing this work, then the gospel work, then the light of the gospel of Christ Jesus can shine on people who hear the message. All right. So this is gospel work, folks. Exposing this hypocrisy, exposing them copying each other. All three of these documents copy each other in some way or another. All right, but claim, the problem here, folks, is you can copy another document, but they claim they are independent of each other, and they are not. All right, so let's jump over to the first example. And I was looking, I believe, at the very first at the Kingdom Accountability Project document, okay? And I was, again, looking for Romans 11:29. So I just looked up the term in the document, irrevocable. This is I'm just going to show you my process, guys. And Jake and I were speaking. He said, I think they spoke about that because he said, what you working on? And I said, I'm working on Romans 11:29. The gifts and call of God are irrevocable. And he said, you know what? I think those documents talked about that. Should look at it. And so we did. And over here, I was like, oh, okay, yeah, here it is. I searched the term irrevocable in all three documents, and it appears in all three documents. Not only does it appear in all three documents, the same three paragraphs, almost word for word, appear in all three documents. The Kingdom Accountability Project, again, the Pastoral Recommendation Team for IHOPKC Investigation, and the Elder Accountability Team recommendations for the Line of Fire Ministries and Dr. Michael Brown. So we all know what we're talking about. These three documents, and again, the Kingdom Accountability Project came out just as of late. And then the Pastoral Recommendation Team of IHOPKC. When was this released? I don't have the date right here, but very recently. And then the Elder Accountability Team reinstating Dr. Michael Brown into ministry. So here we go. Here is the copy. God forgives sin and restores repentant people back into fellowship with him and the church, but the consequences of their sin may last a lifetime. Some of those consequences may include the permanent loss of the honorable blessings of ministry and leadership in the church, both of which are privileges, not promises, while the gifts and the callings of God regarding Israel. So they're correct. Just real quick, they are correct. That passage in Romans 11:29 is about Israel, are irrevocable. according to Romans 11:29. Ministry, positions, and official offices of the church are not the same. So they are actually opposing the contemporary concept in the charismatic movement and the New Apostolic Reformation that the gifts and call of God are irrevocable. You can't sin far enough to stop being a prophet, or you can't sin far enough to stop being a apostle, according to people in this movement. All right, so they are not, the church is not the same. These can only be filled by qualified leaders whose lifestyles are described as above reproach. Huh? It's so funny, bro. This is the Kingdom Accountability Project, but Mike Brown is no longer above reproach. He has been reproached. He has brought reproach on the name of Christ by essaying these two women. All right, so they should put him out of ministry. But the Elder Accountability Team document restores him to ministry, although he is no longer above reproach and well thought of by outsiders. 1 Timothy 3:2-7 ESV. Permanent disqualification from ministry should be rare in the church and only happen in the most extreme circumstances of sinful behavior. Remember now, all this that is highlighted is copied on every single document. All three of these documents have these three paragraphs almost word for word in them. A person could permanently disqualify themselves from certain ministries in the church, while not necessarily being disqualified from the others, depending on the authority of the office. Which offices are we talking about? The severity of the sin, the length of time it was practiced, the number of people affected by it, and the attitude of the offending person. In this scenario, a person could disqualify themselves from a high office in the church and eventually be qualified for another place that is not so visible, authoritative, and in the public eye. So it just depends. You could, it depends on the sin. You could be in another place. Anyways, all right, here we go. Permanent disqualification from ministry should be reserved for the most grievous offenses that are signs of a larger pattern of predatory behavior that would qualify a person to be considered a clear and present danger of the flock of God in their present condition. Remember, all this is copied. All of this that you see right here is copied in all three documents. Over time, if genuine repentance and its corresponding fruit become evident, the original ICP, I'm not sure what that stands for, that issued the initial determination may reconsider its decision upon receiving an appeal from the offender. Any such review should occur only after ample time has passed, meaningful life changes have been demonstrated, victims have been consulted, and the harm caused has been adequately addressed among those most deeply impacted. The process and timing of such an appeal should be evaluated on a case-by-case basis. All right, so that is all a copy. This is the Kingdom Accountability Project, which was released most recently, but I have metadata information that it is the oldest document, although it is most recently published. Interesting. This document began before the other two, the Pastoral Recommendation Team for IHOP and the Elder Accountability Team for Dr. Brown, were written. This Kingdom Accountability Project file was first. It originated first, but was released most recently. All right, here we go. We have over here now, the PRT affirms that certain conduct and choices a permanent disqualification. All this is basically a word-for-word copy, except for, let me see if I can pull it up and show it side by side. I'll have to pull it to the side over here so I can see it on one screen and y'all can look at this one. The only thing that is not exact or the same is while God forgives is not in the Kingdom Accountability Project, and restores repentant people back into sin, blah, blah, blah. Let's see. Public eye. See if I can see this. Yeah, the second paragraph, permanent disqualification from ministry should be rare in the church and only happen in the same most extreme circumstances of sinful behavior. That is, Scripture is clear that these can only be filled with qualified leaders whose lives are blameless and have a good testimony among those who are outside. So it stops at 1 Timothy 3:2 and 7 for the IHOPKC document. Permanent disqualification is not in the IHOPKC document. Then it says the PRT affirms that a person may permanently disqualify themselves from certain ministries in church depending on the authority of the office. Permanent disqualification from ministry should be reserved for the most grievous offenses. And then, but the majority of the body of these paragraphs are the same. All right. And then over here in God Forgives Sins, this is actually the Dr. Michael Brown version is almost exactly the same as the Kingdom Accountability Project statement. Okay. All three of those, these two paragraphs. All right. And the calling of God are regarding Israel irrevocable according to Romans 11:20. That's a word for word copy with even the same things highlighted. Romans 11:29. The texts of Scripture are highlighted in bold. 1 Timothy 3:2 and 7 highlighted in bold on all three documents. I mean, the similarities are uncanny. These documents had the same source. All right. So let's go over here to Jake Elliott's post. Jake Elliott from the Framework, big props to him on this. And I will just read his work. He has had he used software to compare and contrast these three documents. The EAT, so he abbreviates them, the EAT, the Elder Accountability Team, the PRT, the Pastoral Recommendation Team, report on Mike Bickle, and the KAP, Kingdom Accountability Project, which, by the way, is an 84-page document, all right, were routed through one Mac device whose metadata was then scrubbed. This implies intentional obfuscation. So just give a little background. He found, and I've been in communication with him for the majority, a day before yesterday, we talked at length, and he said that all three documents, according to his software that did this research for him, a human can't do this. So he had a software help him. A Mac device was one single Mac machine, workstation, was the producer of these three documents. And the metadata was scrubbed somehow. So then I looked and I was like, wait, what? How? I don't even, I'm a computer dummy. Like, there's metadata in documents that defines time of creation, author, machine. It can link it to a machine that's done the thing. It can link it to iCloud services and all these type of things. There is this data inside the document that describes it, defines it, and can identify its sources and all that type of stuff. So that metadata was scrubbed. And I'm like, you can do that? I mean, I guess you could do it. You could do it. So I looked into that and I actually asked, Google, can you scrub metadata? How do you do that? And then, it gives you a way to scrub it. You can't scrub it completely. And so that's what happened here. You can't scrub the metadata completely. And so Jake found out that through the fingerprints on this in the metadata that was still there, implies that they are all three from the same Mac OS device, Quartz, whatever that is. Quartz is like the metadata background or something like that. I don't know all this terminology. It's just new for me. But this discovery changes everything. He says all three PDFs pass through the same Mac device. Its metadata fields were deliberately wiped clean. Whoever owned that workstation wanted no trace of authorship left behind. In forensics, that is not coincidence, that is concealment, he says. So this big people, this is big. When you look at all three documents, they're formatted almost identically. There's flat out plagiarism. Or, now, can you plagiarize a document and not give credit when you're doing something like this? That's the question. The problem is that they have said that these are independent investigations. What does Michael Brown's investigation have to do with IHOPKC? Nothing. It should have nothing to do with it, but they are copying and pasting, or at least using a framework and then changing it to adapt to Mike Bickle's situation or Mike Brown's situation. What do they have to do with each other? They should have absolutely nothing. Zero, zilch, nothing, nada. They should have nothing to do with each other, right? But they are, in some cases, and I showed you 3 paragraphs, nearly identical copies. Even formatting, down to formatting, is identical. The scriptures give it away. Both scriptures emblazoned in bold in those 3 paragraphs. All right, but when you strip the setup away, they all come from the same template and present almost identical theology. The formatting is the same, the arguments are the same headers and footers for 2 of the documents. The foot is the same for all 3. This line, just show you, you can see it. This line, footer, is a line above the page number over here. This footer has this line as well. And then the page number. And on these, Kingdom Accountability Project, same footer with a page number underneath the footer, which is a line. The line cuts the page off, shows the page footer. All right, so let's see here. Where were we? The footing is the same. The arguments are the same headers and footers in the documents. The foot is the same, not to mention the amount of plagiarized content across all 3. See explicit examples within the Kingdom Accountability Project, page 31 of EAT, page 9, and PRT, page 16. I showed you those. That is 3 paragraphs, virtually the same. The sloppy theological presentation is identical, and all the metadata was wiped by the same device. There's no independence here. But the kicker is this: who actually initiated all of this? Let me answer this plainly. I'm convinced that this was a coordinated cover-up. Whoever scrubbed the metadata was hiding the fact that the original author of the KAP and the EAT reports was Dr. Michael L. Brown himself. How he comes to that conclusion, I'll let him defend it, but using PDF metadata, I was able to determine through his software and through all of his resources the chronological order of when these PDFs were created. The Kingdom Accountability Project report appears to have been the first to be written, or at least begun, around mid-December 2024, so nearly a year ago. Hold that date in your mind. The metadata also revealed that the Kingdom Accountability document acted as a template or scaffold for dealing with future situations involving Dr. Brown and Mike Bickle. So I went deeper into the metadata, trying to identify the signature of the device. Every time it came up as a Mac OS Quartz PDF context, the same Mac device for all 3 reports. I thought, quote, could they all have come from the same workstation? It's amazing. Technically, yes, all 3 documents, the KAP, Kingdom Accountability Project, the Elder Accountability Team, and the Pastoral Recommendation Team went through that same device so the metadata could be wiped. So the metadata, the projects, all the documents went through the same device and were wiped by the same device, metadata wiped. Eventually, the software I was using pulled up information it wasn't supposed to, then quickly removed it. But I saw it listed to Kuhn on the PRT report, literally listed Michael Brown's name on both the KAP report and even the EAT report. His own Elder Accountability Team report. That data confirmed that the KAP was created first and acted as the scaffold and template for the later EAT report on Dr. Brown and the PRT report on Mike Bickle. The timing makes perfect sense. The KAP document was created on December 9 to 15, 2024, just weeks after Dr. Brown himself was publicly exposed. This backs up something that Cochran from the Church Disrupted mentioned. So Cochran, I forget his first name, but the Church Disrupted podcast, he looked into Dr. Michael Brown. He thinks that Dr. Michael Brown wrote his own accountability report because he thought it seems similar to Brown's writing. And so he actually used as well software to see if, and giving, 4,000 and 10,000 words of Dr. Brown's writing and comparing it to the accountability report. And it basically came back 70 to 80% match for Dr. Brown's tone, writing, fingerprint, footprint, and all that stuff. So here's the YouTube right here. Here we can, I'll just click over on it so you can see. All right. So he actually, let's see if I can get some of his pages up. So he's trying to compare Brown to other writers. Yeah. And comes up with pretty much that 60 to 80% likelihood that Brown wrote the EAT report. All right. Let's see. I'm going to scroll up. I think that's actually all we need. So I'll post Jake's words here in the. I don't need to go through the entire thing, but basically, we'll read the whole thing. Here we go. So, then he compares them to the two other statements, the Christian nationalism statement and the prophetic standards statement. All right. This guy right here, the NAR and Christian nationalism statement and the prophetic standards statement, which those two are very similar to each other. And I try to compare them as well to the other three, but these are too similar to each other. All right. And I'll show you that as well. All right, here we go. So let's think about Dr. Brown's behavior over the last few years. April 29, 2021, prophetic standards statement. After the false Trump prophecies, he was the first to restore credibly to prophetic ministry, enforcing ethical and accountable practices rather than allowing unbridled, unchecked prophetic claims. The NAR Christian nationalism statement, after media scrutiny over the NAR and nationalist groups linked to him, Dr. Brown again took the lead, positioning himself and his peers as the moderate middle, distancing from the radical side of NAR and Christian nationalism. That's very typical of Brown. When things go bad in the NAR, he's the first to step in and appear to clean it up. That's what he did with IHOPKC. Stepped in, although he was guilty himself of the same thing. He stepped in to be the moral voice of reason or whatever, Mike Bickle is exposed. Dr. Brown was involved in the IHOPKC case from the beginning. Why does this not want to scroll down? All right, here we go. Scandals continue from there on, leading up to his own downfall in late 2025. But when things began to fall apart, he brought the Kingdom Accountability Project forward, and as always, everyone signed it. Keep this sequence in mind as I unpack the metadata from behind the PS and NCN statements. When I downloaded and analyzed those statements, the author signatures again linked Dr. Brown to their creation. The software identified that these two PDFs were created by the same author as the KAP and EAT reports. So he found in his analysis that the metadata shows that these statements, we get those in there, Christian nationalism and the prophetic standard statement was the same source as the Kingdom Accountability Project statement document. All right. Both PDFs list Mac OS X Quartz PDF context and Microsoft Word for Mac, the same configuration Brown typically uses for his Ask Dr. Brown documents and the Fire School syllabi. The embedded author field literally reads Dr. Michael L. Brown and Ask Dr. Brown Office Mac, confirming direct authorship or immediate administrative production. Now look at this. Kingdom Accountability Project creation date. And then he gives all the dates and moderators and elder accountability. And you might say, so the Kingdom Accountability Project was being written by author Ask Dr. Brown Office Mac before the EAT report on Dr. Brown. Exactly. And to make matters worse, many of the same names appearing on those two earlier statements also appear on the KAP signatory list. The KAP document itself is hosted on the International Coalition of Apostolic Leaders. So, what NAR? What NAR? The Kingdom Accountability Project. This one right here, which is telling churches how to hold their leaders accountable, which they do not, is on the International Coalition of Apostolic Leaders website. That's where it's hosted, I think, as far as I can tell. Inviting people to sign it the same way Brown's earlier statements were circulated. So they were circulated. The Prophetic Standard Statement has its own website, and I think I'm not sure exactly anymore. It has its own. I just typed them in and found it, but they're asking for signatories. Yeah, they're asking for signatories, and basically that's how they get support of the thing. This consistent pattern of behavior also shows that Dr. Brown has been working closely with John P. Kelly, head of the New Apostolic Reformation, and Mark Pfeiffer. They're both co-conveners of the International Coalition of Apostolic Leaders. So to conclude, the deceit and illusion are in the presentation. Different covers, different names, and supposedly different independent teams investigating Dr. Brown and Mike Bickle, although all through Dr. Brown's hands. These documents are not independent of each other. They are, for lack of a better way to put it, in lots of places, direct copies of each other. And you can just see that with, you don't need, yeah, it's funny. You don't even need, this software to do this for you. You don't need a forensic analysis. You can see that 3 paragraphs are the same in all 3 documents. What is the probability of that? All 3 documents have the same idea. Romans 11:29 is about Israel. All 3 of them. And that's a aberration or a deviation from the consistent thread of the NAR. Funny enough, the Prophetic Standard Statement says something else about 11:29. Let's go over there and have a look. So Romans 11:29 is interpreted differently in this statement over here, the Prophetic Standards Statement. And I'll highlight it for you so you can see it. It's kind of hard to see. Because God's gift and calling are irrevocable, see Romans 11:29, we understand that a person who has been prophetically gifted might be able to function in that gifting even though they are no longer in right relationship with God. That is why it is imperative that we judge a prophet by the fruit of their life and ministry rather than by their gift. Also recognizing that there are some who started right but will be rejected in the end. See Matthew 7:21-23. This is the modern understanding of Romans 11:29, which is an aberrant view. It's a false hermeneutic and understanding of Romans 11:29. This is the false right here. This right here, this statement in the Prophetic Standards Statement is a false interpretation of Romans 11:29. It stands against the historical theological interpretation. No person no theologian, no commentator in all of church history up to the modern time. I'm just going to say, I wonder if it's about 1940s and 50s with the new order of the latter rain coming about, that this passage of scripture started to be interpreted differently. Romans 11:29 is not interpreted like that. It's about Israel, not the spiritual gifts, folks. It's about Israel. And that the covenant of Israel is not revocable. God cannot repent from his covenant with Israel. That's what it's about. And so this passage, so I thought, wait a minute, this statement differs from all 3 of the others because this says this is about the spiritual gifts. And these 3 others over here, these 3, say it's about Israel. So I thought, who signed the documents that are similar to each other? The 3 signers who signed these things, let me just double check and confirm that. Who were all 3 of the signers? So I have a document here I'm going to go through in a moment. I think I have all the signers here. Maybe this is not it, actually. So this is a research. It has everything open everywhere. I think let me look over here and see if I have that. The consistent signers of all these documents Overlapping signers and their contradiction. Michael Brown signed the PSS, the Prophetic Standards Statement, and that he didn't sign the accountability project thing, but he signed the Prophetic Standards Statements. Mark Pfeiffer signed the Prophetic Standards Statement, and Joseph Matera signed the Prophetic Standards Statement. And Mark Pfeiffer is on all three, or has something to do with all three of these documents. He is a let's see, on the Elder Accountability Team. He is on the team of elders. He is one of the he is one of the 4 elders on the Elder Accountability thing. And then he is Pastoral Recommendation Team. He's also on that team. And let's see here. Yeah, Mark and Nikki Pfeiffer. He's on this one on the Pastoral Recommendation Team. And he is a main editor. He calls himself a managing editor of this Kingdom Accountability Project. And he's a signer of the Prophetic Standards Statement. So he contradicts himself. So Joseph Matera and Mark Pfeiffer are all common in these 4 documents. And Mark Pfeiffer contradicts himself by signing the Prophetic Standards Statement and coming out with the other documents, all of them saying that Romans 11:29 is about Israel. And then in the Prophetic Standards Statement, they say it's about the spiritual gifts. Check it over here again. Because God's gifts and calling are irrevocable. They're talking about prophetic gift. You can still be a prophet, and that gift is irrevocable. That spiritual gift is irrevocable, according to the Prophetic Standards Statement, signed by Matera, Brown, and Pfeiffer. And then over here, Brown being the writer of the Kingdom Accountability Project and the other statements. And we're not the only ones. Jake and I are not the only ones looking at this and saying, Brown seems to have written this. This is his voice. Yeah. And his own accountability project, his own accountability report. Think about this. He's holding himself accountable, folks. It's unbelievable. So they all signed it and contradicted themselves. All right, now we're going to jump over here to my, showing more evidence that these things are definitely copies of each other in some way or shape or form. Copy and paste, paraphrase, and structural reuses. Here we go. This is my own document of the copies that are within these documents. All right, so exact copy and paste. The 12-gram sequences are long, exact runs. Okay. How many of those were there? From the EAT to the Kingdom Accountability Project. So this is the Elder Accountability Team of Mike Brown, 1,832 exact copy and paste 12 grams. All right. Slightly changed, shared 8-gram, overlapping, excluding anything already explained by a 12-gram exact match. All right. So there are 411 slightly changed from the Kingdom Accountability to the EAT. KAP to the PRT, 635 12-gram exact copy and pastes. Then 177 slightly changed. From the EAT to the PRT, from Brown's document about him, about his reinstatement, to the Pastoral Recommendation Team for Bickle, 734. Those are shorter documents, so that's pretty incredible. 12 exact copy and pastes. And then slightly changed, 162. So here are some, let's say, exact copy and pastes examples, right? I showed you the big one, the 3 paragraphs. Then each position carries with it a certain amount of responsibility and expectation, KAP to the PRT. These carry a higher level of visibility and privilege because they are executed in the public eye, KAP to PRT. Those are exact copy and paste. This ensures an independent investigation can occur while avoiding the opportunity of speculation of covering up reported abuse, KAP to PRT. Structural template reuse signals, headlines, phrases, and stuff like that. Biblical due process are quotes that were reused, suggested disciplinary action, handling moral failure, independent counsel, like they're independent. This was the whole claim, guys. The whole claim is that these three things are completely independent of each other. And they are not. They are not. I mean, just if you take my own observation, I observed it and I thought, that's a copy of that. I saw that in the other one. And then I looked, is it in the third one? Are you kidding me? 3 copy and pastes of 3 paragraphs. That is obvious copying and pasting. It's plagiarism. So they're not independent and they're plagiarizing each other. Probably they're plagiarizing this document here that was written. Jake proved it through his analysis that this Kingdom Accountability Project was the first, the origin document. And they're taking from this document. It's amazing. So I thought, this is a conflict of interest big time. There are real sourced ties to apostolic and charismatic networks, Tikkun, Dove. I've shown that through Prokopchak. He signed this document over here, the Kingdom Accountability Project. Let's see, ECFA profile, Dove Apostolic Council pages, life model bios, public notes about Cantor's relationship and history with Dr. Brown. These are perceived COIs, conflicts of interest, not proof of bias, but they should be disclosed. All right. Plagiarism, copy paste. Yes, there is a heavy template reuse across all 3 documents. Exact overlaps in the thousands of unique 12 grams. That's a exact copy and paste with hundreds more near matches. Those are 8 grams. Repeated headings, sections show structural reuse. Biblical due process, quote, independent counsels, quote, definitions, etc. This is typical of a shared template repurposed with edits, not necessarily academic plagiarism, but it undercuts the claim of complete independent origin. So according to Jake, this digital provenance, the EAT came first. The Elder Accountability Team, Dr. Brown, being reinstated, was April 2025. The Kingdom Accountability Project came thereafter, June of 2025, and then the PRT, September of 2025, all via a Mac OS Quartz system. And no author names were preserved in the metadata, no change history embedded. So I want to show here that this is a very likely the same editorial person or team. And it is, I mean, you know, Pfeiffer is the common thread. We can see that. He actually gives credit. He is the main editor, managing editor in the Kingdom Accountability Project. He is on the elder team of this, and he's on the pastoral team of that. So he is the common thread. There is one common thread, and it's him. He has given himself credit for it. The 3 PDFs contain thousands of identical multi-word phrases, measured, shared 12-word sequences. The biggest overlap is between the April EAT report and the June KAP guidance. So the Elder Accountability Report for Mike Brown, reinstating him into ministry, those 2, this one, the Kingdom Accountability Project, and the Mike Brown reinstatement papers are virtually from each other. It's pretty obvious. Shared structural headings is another clue that these are from the same source. All 3 documents reuse the same policy scaffold and identical section headings: biblical due process, suggested disciplinary action, independent counsel, definitions, restoration process, etc. That kind of structural reuse strongly suggests a single underlying template or one source of truth document used by all 3. Which one? Hard to tell, but I tend to think KAP document is the framework, and they've borrowed from that. Chronology consistent with a single production team. The metadata shows that the EAT document predates KAP, which predates the PRT. The reuse pattern matches this chronology: earlier template to later reuse. Document production metadata is consistent. All 3 of the PDFs exports produced by Mac OS Quartz PDF context. That's not proof of a single author, but supports the idea of centralized production practice. These documents are not independent. Don't let them fool you and lie to you that these are independent investigations. They are from the same source. Mark Pfeiffer is the one who's given as the source, we can see that he is the common thread that is named on these 3 documents. And over here, again, I mean, this is the biggest smoking gun right here I have ever seen. 3 nearly exact replica in this document, paragraphs, to the other KAP over here. I'll pull it in to the screen. I was shocked. I couldn't believe it. I could not believe it for the life of me. All right. So who is copying whom? Who is copying whom? And again, I think Mike Winger should put this out. I'm putting this out because I discovered it, and with a little help from my friends. Thanks, Jake. And he took the ball and ran with it. And then I looked into it further, and then we were putting our heads together, and it's like, this is pretty obvious that this is not independent from the other. It's so obvious that I can say it with 95% certainty that these documents come from the same author team, and they are borrowing from each other. That makes them not independent, not biased. They are biased. They are part of the NAR. And if you look at the names in these documents, you know, I focused on them last time on my show, talking about the Kingdom Accountability Project. It is not an unbiased document. It is an NAR document. All the people that I could recognize are NAR. Either apostles, they call themselves apostles, or prophets. John P. Kelly calls himself an apostle. Mark Pfeiffer calls himself an apostle. Patricia King, a prophet. Dan Juster calls himself an apostle. Joseph Matera is called an apostle on the International Coalition of Apostolic Leaders website. David Engelhardt, Josh Clark, Whale Farasan, Barney Barnes, Fabio, let's see, let me just go through the names I recognize. John P. Kelly again, Patricia King named in the executive committee, Sam Hayes, Jeremiah Johnson, Dan Juster, apostle, Joe Matera, apostle. Let's see, Mark Pfeiffer, Nick Pfeiffer. Initial endorsers, Dr. Randy Clark. He is part of the NAR. Dr. Shay An, Dr. Barbara Yoder, Dr. Sharon. I wonder if any of these people have true doctorates. Besides Shay An, I know he and Randy Clark have a legitimate doctorates. Dr. Arlene Westerhoff, part of the NAR in Europe, no question. Apostle Mark and Patricia Estes, telling you who they are, folks. They're telling you who they are. Cindy Jacobs, they didn't put doctor in front of her name here. That's interesting. There's Jeremiah Johnson, Danny Silk, part of the NAR, no question. Dr. Leif Hetland, part of the NAR. Dr. Steve Prokopchak, Dove International Apostolic Network, part of the NAR. Let's see. Apostle Les Bowling. Oh, they got lots of names over here, too. Oh, my goodness. All right, let's see. Yeah, I mean, I don't need to keep going. They're all apostles or prophets. They are all apostles or prophets. In my previous show, I showed you how all the signers and people involved in this Kingdom Accountability Project document are part of the NAR, and that you should not use it for any sort of accountability structure in your church whatsoever. I've been going a long time, folks. I'm going to leave it there, and I hope and pray that Mike Winger takes it on at the Bible Thinker over there. Laura Lynn maybe takes it on. Brother John Elving, please. Blaze and Christine Foray, take it, please. Take it on. Look into it. Wake Up and Win podcast, Torn Curtain podcast, Joshua Simone. Maybe you can take a look at it as well. And the Minor Prophets. These people are not holding each other accountable. They are. This is the, again, I'll just say it, the Kingdom Non-Accountability Apostolic Project. They are not going to hold themselves accountable, and they're going to give passes to everyone except Mike Bickle. He just went a bridge too far. He abused one too many people, and they can't have that. That was just a few too many. They couldn't get him out of the doghouse. And then these prophetic standard statement. Those who signed this as well, Joseph Matera, signed both of these statements, the Prophetic Standard Statement and the New Apostolic Reformation and Christian Nationalism Statement. They signed it, but they signed all three, but they signed it and they it's so funny. The last paragraph on this statement opposes the interpretation of Romans 11:29 that they have given in the other three documents. The other three documents give a proper, I'm going to give them props. They give a proper interpretation of Romans 11:29 that it's about Israel. But in the Prophetic Standard Statement, they say it's about spiritual gifts. So which is it? Joseph Matera and Mark Pfeiffer. Is it about Israel? Is Romans 11:29 about Israel? Or is it about the spiritual gifts? And Mike Brown signed the Prophetic Standard Statement. So is Romans 11:29 about Israel or about the spiritual gifts? Good. Just got that question because no one else in all of church history has understood it as spiritual gifts. But in the Prophetic Standard Statement, you understand it to be spiritual gifts. I'm just saying. The entirety of church history has understood a Romans 11:29 to be about Israel because it is. If you just look at the context, it's very, very simple. It's very, very easy to understand. It is about the covenant with Israel. God has an eternal, irrevocable covenant with Israel. All right, folks, that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. These documents are from the same source. They are not independent, and their investigations into these things were also not independent, right? The Firefly investigations were independent, but their conclusions of them and their recommendations of them were not independent. They're all connected to each other. They're all connected to Pfeiffer, Brown, Joseph Matera, John P. Kelly, and those people are all apostles in the movement. They have said so. They are apostles. Don't let them tell you any different. Don't let them try to gaslight you. They're changing the goalposts. They're moving the goalposts right in front of our eyes. Don't let them lie to you. Don't let them deceive you. Mark and avoid all these men, for they are deceivers. And it says right here in the passage, try to discern what's pleasing to the Lord. So what would be pleasing to the Lord? Don't take part in unfruitful deeds of darkness, but instead expose them. It's shameful even to speak about the things that these people do in secret. But when anything is exposed by the light, it becomes visible. For anything that becomes visible is light. Therefore it says, awake, O sleeper, and arise from the dead, and Christ will shine on you. If we do not expose the deeds of darkness of these people in the visible church who are claiming to be Christians, then the light of the gospel cannot shine on them. But if we expose these deeds of darkness, then the light of Christ, everything becomes visible. And then we will be able to awake and arise from the dead, and the light of Christ will shine on us. And that is my hope, that by exposing these things, these deceptions and these hypocrisies, as Jesus calls them, the leaven of the Pharisees is hypocrisy. And they are Pharisees for their lies and hypocrisy and scrubbing metadata. I don't even know how to do that. I had no idea you could do that. I was like, wait, you can scrub metadata from a document? Like, how do you do that? So I'm sad now I even know how to do that because I just looked it up. How do you scrub metadata on Google? Google could tell you everything. How to scrub metadata from a document. I didn't even know you could do that. But they did that to hide their duplicity. These men are duplicitous, liars, and obfuscators. They are hiding from the truth. And they are trying to cover up for all their duplicitous and evil deeds done in darkness. And I'm going to do my best over here to expose these shameful deeds, the unfruitful deeds of darkness, and expose them. Do my best. And I just noticed that across these documents that they were copying and pasting. It is obvious. I read it and I couldn't believe it. All three documents. have thousands of copy and paste, 12-gram copy and pastes across each document. And the source, the metadata source, shows that these documents come from the same computer workstation. So, folks, that'll do it for this episode of Firm Foundation. And I sure hope that all the other charismatic bloggers, continuationist bloggers would take, because apparently people who are not continuationists can't critique these guys. That's what I'm told. That's what I'm told. Although I am not a cessationist. I am not a practicing cessationist. I am a continuationist, a seatbelt continuation, I would say. This is just a side note. But if you practice the gifts as the Bible describes them, then go right ahead, man. Go right ahead. But nobody in this movement is practicing the gifts as the Bible describes them. It's just not happening. It's not happening. This is all a construct. Nobody in this movement, I've never, ever, ever seen anybody in this movement have an interpretation for a tongue. Has anybody ever seen that before? I'd love it. Send me a video of a person speaking from the stage in a tongue, shabba ding dong, and they have an interpretation for that tongue. I've never seen that before. Just a side note. All right. So, folks, Mike, please take this on. Laura Lynn, take this on. Brother John, please take this on. Blaze and Christine, take this on. Torn Curtain, take this on. Minor Prophets, take this and run with this. They are covering up their tracks. These documents are from the same source. All right, that'll do it for this episode of Firm Foundation Podcast. Hey, maybe you've heard we have some merch. I'm actually wearing some of our merch right now, and this is pretty cool. I thought this was a good one. Blue hoodie. Check it out over here at this QR code. You can check it out. You can maybe even support us for a couple bucks. Every purchase of all the gear over there, all the swag over there at Firm Foundation Store gets me a couple bucks. I would appreciate you buying me a coffee and supporting our channel. You're also welcome to support our channel over at our Patreon page. That's patreon.com/Firm Foundation Show. Patreon.com/Firm Foundation Show. And if you want to reach out to me, you're welcome to do that. firmfoundationshow@gmail.com. That's firmfoundationshow@gmail.com. If you want to know more about my ministry, you're welcome to check out richardpmoore.net. I also blog at richardpmoore.blogspot.com. You can follow me on X, formerly Twitter, at richardm23 is my handle. Please feel free to reach out to me on any one of those platforms. God bless y'all. Until next time, take care.